Hey, hey, hey. Hey, I'm Tony Kriz. It's great to be here. I am husband to Amy, father to 3 courageous and creative boys. We're all middle school and late public school age or grade school age. And I live here in the city. I'm a writer, speaker, teacher, filmmaker, and sometimes I pay bills. It's a nice gig. And you guys are always so good to invite me back time and again, and it's always a privilege to be with you, and I'm getting to know some of you, which is great. And I've been around the school now since I returned to the States 18 years ago. I lived in the Middle East and the Balkans for all of my 20s, fresh out of college, moved over when I was 21 years old, moved back to the States. I've been a part of the Multnomah world ever since then. I came back, and part of my return, my reentry was to go to seminary. I got a degree here. I got an MDiv from the seminary. It was Dr. Paul Metzger's first semester, so I was in his first class, which is great because he needed some breaking in, and I was just the person to do it. So if you guys know Dr. Metzger, okay. I have a very special guest tonight. This is my friend Wilson Smith, one of my best friends in the world.
That's an honor. That is an honor, honestly.
He is single. Just want to point that out.
That is really sad. Okay.
This is Wilson Smith. Wilson, the accolades go on and on and on. Musician, worship leader, lead designer for Nike. Used to be a designer for the Jordan brand and for Nike Court. You are probably wearing shoes right now that he designed. All right.
You go.
In addition to that, believe it or not, I kid you not, and you're not going to believe me. That man, right there, turned 60 years old in a couple of weeks. What the what? I know. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
That is a whole lot of handsome for 60 years old. You're lying. I know. You think I'm lying. 66, 6 decades.
A lot of trips around the sun.
That's a lot of trips around the sun. That's a lot of trips. We're talking Melchizedek kind of stuff. All right. So tonight, we're just going to hang out with you, and we literally have no agenda. In fact, Wilson walked in 3 minutes ago, and that was the first we talked about what we're going to do, which is nothing. We're going to hang out with you, and you get to choose the topics, and we're going to sit here, and we're going to sort of have a conversation, and we might play some music, and we meaning Wilson, and hang out together. So let's start out with one hand up in the air. Everybody, one hand up in the air, please. 5 fingers. 1 finger is low, 5 fingers is high. How enthusiastic are you at this particular stage of your life? I see a big, powerful 5 right there with spread fingers. I got a 3 in the front row. Rich is a 3. You guys got to do something to inspire. There's a 1. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your honesty. Got a 4 over here, 5 on the side in the pretty green dress. Fantastic. Okay, hands still up. 1 being low, 5 being high. How known do you feel by your community? How known do you feel? 5, extremely known. 1, not known at all, alone, isolated. I got a 1 in the back. Thank you for your honesty. There's another 1 right there. Here's a 3. I have a power 4. My favorite in the second row right here. I got a 5 in the back row, 3. Rich says 4, so he's feeling a little bit, not so excited, but he's feeling known in his unexcitement, which is great. All right, let's do one more. Ready? 5 being high, 1 being low. This is how confident I feel in my faith right now. How confident I feel in my faith. 5 being high, 1 being low. Got a 2. Thank you for your honesty. 3, a 2, a couple 2s in the front row. Got a 5 over here. Thank you. 3, 2 all the way in the back in the corner. Thank you, my friend. 3 on the side. Thank you. I see you over the bookshelf. All right. Thank you. I think one of my favorite topics in the world is confession. And I think confession gets a bad rap in religion because it's relegated to this world of shame and guilt. I have to do something I don't want to do. I have to confess something to other people. And yet I think so much of spiritual freedom is found in the open life. And when you're walking across campus and you pass a friend and that friend says, hey, how you doing today? Just to take that moment, take that pause and not answer, not give them the reflex, programmed answer, but to take a moment and reflect and let your internal light look at your soul and then confess to that person how you actually are. How you actually are on that day, in that moment. Not how you are at 10,000 feet, but in that moment, as you're walking across campus, you just walked out of one class, you're trying to walk towards another. Maybe you feel like you're not performing at the level you want to. Maybe you feel like your professor disrespected you in some way and it hurt your heart. Maybe you're experiencing some heartbreak. And be willing to say that. So let's let tonight be a confession. I'll let you guys share your hearts, and we're going to do our best to share ours, and we're going to hang out together. All right? All right. So everybody now, you put your hand up, you expressed yourself, you gave the room 3 facts about you, 3 details of your life. Now you should feel very free to just want to share everything. So who's got something they want to say? Question you want to ask? How many of you were in chapel yesterday? There was a yahoo who spoke, I hear. Total yahoo. All right. Like a third of you, which is awesome. Oh, Rich has got a microfono. If you guys don't say it, Wilson can start singing, which I'm looking forward to, actually. Wait till he breaks into show tunes.
How does a band... Oh, I won't go there.
Orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean by providence, impoverished and squalor. Grow up to be a hero and a scholar. The $10 founding father without a father got a lot farther
by walking a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by being a self-starter. By 14, they placed him in charge of a trading charter, and every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the ways, he struggled to keep his guard up. Inside, he was longing for something to be a part of. The brother was ready to beg, steal, borrow, or barter. Then a hurricane came and devastation reigned. Our man saw his future dripping down the drain. Put a pencil to his temple, connected it to his brain, and he wrote his first refrain, a testament to his pain. When the word got around, they said, this kid's insane, man. Took up a collection just to send him to the mainland. Get your education, don't forget from whence you came, and the world's gonna know your name. What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton. My name is Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, we're gonna keep going, okay.
There's so many things I haven't done, but just you wait, just you wait.
Do you really want any more? I think
like I said, guys, this is an open night. We have no idea where it's going.
We can keep going, but...
Who's got a thought? Okay, so Hamilton fan in the middle. Yes. So what do you want to talk about? Come on.
This is getting really spiritual.
Come on. Oh. Dun, dun,
everything in your head.
What? Do you like all show tunes or just Hamilton?
I like all show tunes.
You like all show tunes? What's your all-time favorite?
Wicked. Ooh. Well, Hamilton is good, though.
Wicked.
So,
yeah,
but Wicked.
I'm not a big Wicked fan myself.
Or Les Mis.
Huh?
Les Mis.
Les Mis is on my short list. It's certainly on my short list.
I don't know.
I'm not quite as prolific as I want to be.
All right.
All right, I'll try to break the ice. You were talking about having chaos and order, living in between yesterday, and I want to lose myself. I want to die to myself, but what does that mean? As I was created uniquely, and I was created with my passions to be me, but yet I want to look so much like Jesus or appear to Jesus to everyone else. So what's the balance between dying to myself and losing what is all bad about me, but keeping myself in it, still having Jesus shine through me?
Nice. You got any thoughts there? One of the things I love about Trinitarian theology is it maintains absolute centrality of particularity while also leading with communalness. So loss of self and the particularity of the individual are maintained simultaneously, holding opposites in tension, like we talked about yesterday. How do we resolve that tension? Impossible. Just is. Because it's a transcendent idea. It's a God idea. And I think God laughs at our answers. And doesn't laugh like, ha-ha, making fun of you. You're so silly. God laughs at our answers the way that I laugh at my boys when they come and they share what they feel about things. And I love that they're trying. I love that they're trying so hard, so much, that I burst out laughing when they talk about what they think about the world or life or purpose or how the universe works or why the sky is blue. And God's inviting you to ask the question every day with no promises there's going to be an answer this side of heaven, and just live it, man. Live it. But I think your particularity is one of the things that gives God the most delight. And we talk about the idea that the Christian means little Christ or little Jesus. It's an important concept of Christian theology. It's one of the reasons that I continue to hold, this faith continues to hold my allegiance. But one thing we have to remember is that, yes, we're supposed to live the way Jesus lived, speak the way Jesus speaks, love what Jesus loves, give for what Jesus would give to. But we can't forget that all of that within the context of if Jesus was born in 2000, for me, 1970. Jesus was born in 1970 in a frontier town in an unknown state on the other side of an unknown continent at the time that Jesus said the stuff that he said. In a middle-class family, in a mid-sized house, driving a mid-sized car. If Jesus had been born in that context, what would it look like? What does it mean to talk like Jesus talks and do? And to have my particular personality, which is obnoxious as heck, and overly opinionated, and quick to anger, and passionate, and full of emotions. Anybody seen Wonder Woman? Anybody seen Wonder Woman? I went and saw Wonder Woman today. It's not very good, right? But I cried through the whole thing. I'm such a sap. All right, that's a conversation another day. All right, ice has been officially broken. Oh, and right next door, The Voice.
I think just on the subject of like tensions and resolving tensions, how do we, particularly I think it's something that we really face at this school because we're around so many other Christians on a like long-term basis. Yeah. How do we go about adequately or in a Christ-like manner wrestling with the beliefs of others, like in a world where God is undefinable and maybe people don't agree, but he is definable, we just all define him differently. How do we listen to others and respect and have conversations and increase our own knowledge, expand our knowledge, consider new things, wrestle with it, but also hold to core convictions? Because I think that's really hard when the options are bend and just, yield to what they're saying or break and have your beliefs shattered, or remain the same and be stubborn. Yeah. And it's super hard, especially at this age, to live out our convictions because, we don't want to offend. Like in a society where everything is offensive, we just want to not be that, not do that. We want to be the accepting Christian, the different Christian. And it's like, but also there's something to say about someone that has a core conviction and can stand to it. Like that deserves respect. That's almost stronger than just being like, well, you're right, I don't see God in this way. So how do we do that properly? And, it might not even be a tension we can resolve, but how do we coexist with different beliefs and views of God and still grow in that and enrich one another's lives in that without, offending or crushing the spirit of one another?
All right. What's that look like walking the halls of Nike, I wonder? If only someone could address that.
So being, in a sense, you're saying incarnate Jesus through us. Did I hear that wrong?
And engaging people who believe differently and validating them, but also being true to what you believe and not being ashamed of what you believe and actually being courageous about what you believe simultaneously.
I think that also part of it is trusting the Jesus in us. It's like believing that we don't need an agenda either. And really, Lord, I believe, help me with my unbelief. And living that and being as real as possible. I think people get touched by truth. And if you can connect to your own truth, I think that matters. And hopefully that's what I've tried to live in my shoes at Nike.
That's so good. Yeah, Jesus told 40-something parables. And of those 40-something parables, I think Jesus is probably a pretty creative storyteller. I think the palette of human existence was all present for him to draw from. And there's not one parable about a religious building. There's not one parable about a priest or a prophet. There's not one parable about a holy book. Parables are about widows, virgins, and day laborers, travelers from other lands. People on the margins, people hurting, people from very different backgrounds, and that's where Jesus drew spiritual wisdom from. Those were his spiritual heroes when he told stories. He told stories about these people that are actually not at all like him, and not at all from the religion that he was raised under, directly. And I think part of it is when I'm with somebody, I really try to be aware of whether or not I'm bored, or whether or not I'm just waiting to tell what I think or what I believe. Because if I really love somebody and that person is willing to tell me what they believe, their belief system, even if it's very different than mine, when somebody tells you their belief system, they are telling you what's most important to them. They are telling you about their hopes. They are telling you about the values that give the world structure for them. They're telling you about how they get through each day They're telling you about what it looks like to try and have meaning in a world of chaos and hurricanes and famine and whole people groups being eradicated in northern Myanmar right now, right? There's this world, and we're trying to find meaning. That person is giving you the gift of sharing. Even if you disagree, even if you fundamentally think they're missing the most important points, they are giving you all those things to them. And that's better than a Hollywood movie, if we realize the moment. So I think you can totally give love and affirmation to them as a human being without having to say, I agree with everything you just said. Matter of fact, when I live in a post-Christian neighborhood in North Portland. None of my friends have ever been to church. None of my neighbors have ever been to church. And when they sit and they tell me their stuff, I'm just like, that was amazing. That was amazing. I don't agree with any of it. That's fantastic. Tell me more. And they love that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're not gonna like come over the top and tell me why I'm dumb or something? No, not. I want to hear you keep talking. I don't see the world like you see it at all. That's why I want you to keep talking, because this is amazing. And when you have that attitude, it is uncanny how many times the other person goes, all right, your turn. Tell me how you think the world ticks. What gives you meaning? What gives you hope? What are your dreams? How do you survive in a world where there's ethnic cleansing going on? How do you do it? Where there's 27 million slaves, more slaves than any other time in human history on the planet right now. You know? That was abrupt. Awkward segue. Did I answer your question, friend? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, back row.
So we're talking a lot about living in lives of suffering and how we all experience deep, deep pain throughout our lives at any given point. My question would be, what do we do when the seas are relatively calm, so to speak, and nothing everything is going fairly smooth. Like, sure, there could be major life crisis just around the corner, but how do we live in the now while things are seemingly okay?
How about Spirit, lead me where my faith is without borders. Sorry. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Have you heard that song? Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Pick me deeper when my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. One more time. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. And take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior. Just one last time. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in the presence of my Savior.
So in early church history, we don't have a lot of documents from the first and second century, very little. But we know that one of the earliest names for Jesus that became a part of the vernacular of sort of everyday speech among Jesus people was man of sorrows. Jesus was referred to as man of sorrows. And I have a friend named Ken Lloyd who lives here in the city. He's a 70-something-year-old man, just a little hobbit of a man, just beautiful, covered in tattoos and piercings. He spent his whole life with homeless kids, feeding. He officiates a lot of funerals as part of his life, lives on the streets with kids. Ken Lloyd once said to me that the Lord's Prayer is a ridiculous prayer. It makes no sense. In particular, he said, the line, "Give us this day our daily bread," makes no sense. For those of us who've never known what it is to not have bread, access to bread. There's never been a moment in my life. I've lived in impoverished countries. I've lived on the frontiers of human existence, and I have never not had bread within an arm's length at any point in my entire freaking life. And there's a prayer that I've been praying my whole life. Give us this day our daily bread. And Ken said, the prayer means nothing until you figure out who us is. Who's the us? And if you can answer who the us is, now the prayer has meaning. Matter of fact, it has unending meaning. It has unending application. It has unending nuance, that one phrase, once we figure out who the us is. Is us you? Is us you and your family? You and your friends? You and people that look a lot like you? You and people who vote like you, and read like you, and worship like you, and drive like you, and spend like you, shop like you, drive like you. Is that the us? Or is Jesus inviting you into a bigger us? So, a guy like me, I've got a lot of privilege. I've had a lot of seasons of zero suffering in my life. Pretty cool. Can't wait to find the next series to watch on Netflix because I got time on my hands, right? It's in those moments that maybe we can press into the question, who's the us? And maybe there is suffering to experience, just to experience because we are not isolated, we are not individuals, we are actually co-participants with humanity. And it just takes hitting the world tab on CNN.com to find out who the us is. So there's a thought for you. Is that helpful? Thanks. It doesn't have to be all super serious, y'all. I'm like, But whatever you want to talk about. We're here for you. Or Wilson could just sing, which would be awesome.
You're nice, Tony.
Rich.
All right, Tony. What's the best day of your life?
Best day of my life? Best day of my life. Best day of my life. Best day of my life. Best day of my life.
Wilson can answer too. He can.
Pardon me?
You can answer
I can
too,
answer
Wilson.
too.
Best day of your life.
I was thinking of answering it in a song, but I'm trying to think.
Sing forth.
What if this key's too weird? So I'm going to pull something out from a while ago.
Awesome.
Like a foolish dreamer trying to build a highway to the sky, all my hopes would come tumbling down, and I never knew just why. Until today, when you pulled away the clouds that hung like curtains on my eyes, and I was blind. All these wasted years, and I thought I was so wise. But then you took me by surprise. Like waking up from the longest dream. How real it seemed until your love broke through. I've been lost in a fantasy that blinded me until your love broke through.
It's 70s gospel, everybody. It's good stuff. 70s gospel.
I bet that sounds really old to you guys. All my life I've been searching for that crazy missing part, and with one touch, you just rolled away the stone that held my heart. And now I see that the answer was as easy as just asking you in. And now I'm so sure I will never doubt your gentle touch again. It's like the power of the wind, like waking up from the longest dream. How real it seems until your love broke through. I've been lost in a fantasy that blinded me until your love broke through.
All right, the thought that came to mind when you asked the question. So, the worst season of my life, I was living in Budapest, Hungary. It was 6 months of just absolute, just definitive loneliness and pain. I'd been fired from my job. I thought my reputation was destroyed. I didn't have any friends. I had nothing to do, and I was wandering the streets of Budapest every day by myself for 6 months, waiting for the missions agency I was working for to pass my sentence, whatever my sentence was for my failure. And their sentence was go back to Multnomah. You guys can handle that any way you want to. But during that season, the one thing I look back on as the greatest gift from God, and that was complete magic, was I would go 3 afternoons a week to a Turkish bathhouse. And there's these old, there's one called the Rudaj that is literally carved out of a mountain on the Buddhist side of the river, right along the Danube. And you walk in, and it's like a giant kiln, the domed ceiling and these little tiny colored windows in the top that the sun streams down through, and the rising steam, the colored light lights up the steam. And inside this room that looks like something out of a Indiana Jones movie, in the main room there are 5 pools, and each one's a different temperature, everything from cold to body temperature to hot. And there's a freezing cold bath in the back room, and then there are 2 wet saunas and 3 hot saunas. And back in the day, dry saunas, back in the day, they divided the men and the women. So I go in, it was just me and all these Hungarian mafiosos sitting in these baths, basically naked, floating in this mineral-rich water that's super buoyant. And I would lay there for hours, and I would feel like I was weightless, and I would stare through those beams of light coming through the ceiling for hours on end, and God would just meet me. It was this really, it was a place in my life where everything outside the walls said pain, but in that space, God said, "I got you covered. I can hold you up. You don't have to carry this alone." And those are the best days of my life. So some of the best days of my life. And then there's marriage and having kids and all that stuff too, but that's... I got to get that in case this is being recorded. Little Keith Green, wow. Didn't see that come. What's going on, Trev? Good to see you.
Neither did I.
Yeah, little Keith Green.
That's kind of old. I know the 70s probably the best. I'm sorry. Any guys like any 70s tunes? Anyone you like? No. Oh, cool. Okay.
Don't get him started on early Elton John. We'll be here all night.
We'll probably get there sometime.
Come on, what do you want to talk about? It's for you, y'all. It's for you. Back to this question, by the way. Your question about connecting with people who think differently than you. One of my biggest questions about Bible schools and theological schools, and I have 2 theological degrees, so I'm not bad-mouthing it. I've given much of my money to theological schools. Much of God's money. I believe that retreat is part of spiritual history throughout all of humanity. The idea of escaping, of going to the desert, going to the distant place, going to the quiet place, going to the lonely place, as a part of the spiritual discipline. The mystics embraced it. Certainly the monastics embraced it. And really all through church history and really human history and all the disciplines of spirituality, they've embraced retreat and isolation as part of, as a rhythm, as a going in and coming out, a going in and coming out. But I'm concerned for the isolation that people experience within this context when so many things are being generative inside of you, so many questions being asked, so many new thoughts, so many new beliefs, so many new ways of framing old beliefs along the way, and to not be able to process those things with people who think very, very differently than you, to me is a concern, because it just limits the palette that you get to paint with as you learn and grow. So one thing I would encourage you is to build disciplines to get off campus. And that, I'm not saying being on campus is bad, just build disciplines. If you have the choice between studying here in this room or studying at a coffee shop downtown, and you happen to have the ability to do it and you have time to do it, go to a coffee shop downtown. You may not talk to anybody, and then again you might. You know? You might just be around somebody who thinks a little differently than you. If you like to play ultimate frisbee, you can play on campus. But I guarantee you, there are 50 pickup games around the city tonight. And you could go play ultimate frisbee with people who believe differently than you. What a better thing to do when playing ultimate frisbee than connect with somebody who thinks very differently than you, in a context that's not about what you think necessarily, but just being around people who are diverse and different. Does that make sense? So if you can find ways to do that, it'd be great. Of course, I come here to play basketball, so that's a whole, I guess I don't, but I'm out there a lot, so. Is Trevor still here? He beats up on me a lot. Trevor's not here? No? Okay. I was lost in a fantasy. Blinded me.
Tony, I heard this yesterday, so I don't know if it's true, but it's about you, and I want to ask.
Me?
I heard that in the book Blue Like Jazz, you're a character in the
Blue
book.
Like Jazz?
Is that what it's called?
Is that a book?
And
Blue
I
Like
heard,
Jazz?
yeah, and so I heard that you're a character in it. You're the guy who sets up the booth and like the confessional booth where you tell, great song by the way, but you tell people like what's the problem with the church. I wanted to know if that's true, and also if you could tell us about that experience and what exactly you did.
Yeah. Which is a good or a good follow-up from my opening comment about confession and the beauty of confession. Okay. So when I was here going to seminary, I got a phone call from somebody. This is the way, I think this is how the kingdom works. I get a phone call from a guy who knows me, who's a full-time professional minister whose job is to meet with college students. And he calls me and he says, he said, a friend of mine called me who knows somebody who has a kid who's going to Reed, who's a freshman at Reed College, who is a brand new Jesus follower. Had only committed to Jesus like 3 months before going to Reed College. It was a new freshman, a physics major at Reed College. Because I'm a science guy. I don't know if you know that about me. I have to look. I'm not a science guy. I'm about as liberal arts as you get. And so he calls me and he says, I'm afraid to go there. You seem like somebody who might be willing to take the challenge. And I was like, that. And I had heard all the stories about Reed College. This is back in 99, 2000. And I mean, Reed College back then, I don't know how the perception of it now, but back then, like suburban churches would go on safari and they would like bring their people, like their prayer teams, and they'd walk around Reed in order to see all the pagans in their natural habitat. You know, these little groups, you could see them like walking around in their like floral dresses and their shirts buttoned all the way up to the top, you know, praying for all the heathens in their natural habitat, and they're on safari with, you know, their binoculars and their short pants and hiking boots. So I was like, oh my gosh, Reed College, you got to be kidding me. So back then, I haven't looked up the stats in a decade, but back then, Reed College was of all the colleges and universities in America, Princeton Review said it was the college most likely to ignore God and to hate Christians. And the New York Times said that it was the second most difficult academic institution in America after Cal Poly. So the students there are insanely smart. Most of the students there got into the Ivy League, and they chose not to go to the Ivy League because the Ivy League was either not liberal enough, yeah, that's funny, or the Ivy League was not academic enough for them. They wanted either more liberal or more academic. Okay, so I agreed to meet with this kid, Mitch, and Mitch and I become friends, and I would just sit and listen to Mitch talk about his faith, and his faith was always about quasars and quarks, and every like scientific idea to him was just a Jesus idea, and I had no idea what he was talking about most of the time, and I would just sit there for hours. I would listen to him and nod, and I would go, well, you know, Jesus said that your neighbor is just like a Samaritan. He'd go, that's so great. That's just like a quark. Like, awesome. Get it, man. So to make a long story longer, I ended up sort of being the unofficial chaplain on campus, and we had this little band of 5 students at that point that on some level identified with Jesus. Most of them wouldn't call themselves Christians, but they definitely said, yep, Jesus is something I want to be a part of my life. I want to figure out how to follow Jesus. That seems like a good course. There were 5 students. It was me and a guy named Donald Miller who wrote Blue Like Jazz. And at the end of the year, Reed, back in the day, and I don't even know what it's like now, but back in the day, they used to have this thing called Ren Fair at the end of every school year. Now, Reedies study like nobody you've ever seen. 7 days a week. They study 19 hours a day, and they sleep 4 hours a night, and the other hour they spend getting high. That's basically how they spend their life. And but at the end of the year, they have 3 days they block out where nobody studies, and they have this thing called Ren Fair, Renaissance Fair. And at the Renaissance Fair, basically, it's no studying, just pure experience. School-sanctioned, pure experience. Here's what I mean by school-sanctioned. There were hallucination rooms set up in school buildings where the school set up like slow-mo films and like lava lamps and stuff, and would supply the shrooms and the LSD for you to go in and have a full out-of-mind experience. Okay, this was part of it. This is between you and me right now. Right now, where it's just us. It's our little private little thing. This is not being recorded, right, Rich? Because I'm giving away Reed secrets at this point. So intense was it that they would hire security staff to walk the boundary to keep people out. Not to deal with anything going on inside, because what goes on inside stays inside. And there were great things like the neon light play and the bug eating contest. And then at the end of Ren Fair, everything that gets built, and one of the things that gets built every year is usually something like a giant ship, like 50-foot long ship made out of like plywood. They would build it on the lawn, and then across from it they'd build like a tower or a castle that was like 30 feet high. And then at the end of Ren Fair, they would have like a Roman candle battle and shoot them at each other across the way until everything burst into flames, and then everyone would like jump over the edge of the ship to escape. This is legit. I'm not making this up. These are real things I witnessed with my own eyes. Okay, so Ren Fair was approaching. In the book, it's like 4 paragraphs. So you guys are definitely giving the extended version. So Ren Fair is approaching, and it's my first full year there, and we get the students together. We're sitting around talking to them. Hey guys, I was like, what would it look like? What would it look like for Jesus, for us, is trying to figure the Jesus thing out. What would it look like for us to participate in Ren Fair? Like really participate. I mean, do we believe in the incarnation or not? Do we believe that God can show up anywhere or not as an idea? Do we believe it or not? Because if we believe it, and they're all like, this is a terrible idea. This is the worst idea. Well, let's just try, let's just be creative. Let's just ask the question. You never know. So we're throwing around these terrible ideas, just terrible ideas like, oh, I can't even remember, but they were bad. They were really, really wonderfully bad. But we assessed it's the Renaissance. And in the Renaissance, the church was a player. Much more than today. Back in the Renaissance, the church was engaged, was around. It's like, so we've got an excuse. The church, religion has got an excuse to be there. What would it look like? And we could throw around all these ideas, flagellating and stuff, and it just was bad ideas. And then somebody said in the group, they said, well, what if we did a confession booth? Confession booths was part of life back in the Renaissance. It's like, yeah, and they're like, oh, we could build like in the middle of campus, like right next to the ship that's going to burst into flames. We could build this like big wooden box with 2 sides on it and a little screen. We could just build that right there, and we can invite people to come in and confess their sins. That's hysterical. We should do that. And I was like, you know what? That's half of a good idea. I think we're halfway there. And we were banding around, and then at one point I just said, what would happen is instead of asking them to confess to us, what if they came in and we turned the tables, we did the confessing, we confessed on behalf of the church. How about that? And they're like, that's a great idea. You'd be really good at that. And I was like, what? I said we, and they're like, no, you. And I was like, we. And I'm like, no, we'll be great. We'll be standing guard and making sure people don't burn the box while you're in there. And I was like, that's a good plan. I think we should have somebody doing that. And so sure enough, we spent like the day and a half before building this box, this 8-foot tall box with one door that's sealed and the other door that was sort of just had like a curtain, and you come in, you could sit down, there's a little thing, and you open the curtain inside. And my wife made me this like burlap monk's outfit with like a big hood, like something out of Monty Python, and a rope around. And I would sit in there, I would smoke my pipe, and the air would, and we'd light candles inside, and did this whole thing, this whole experience. And so, they're like, okay, Tony, go do it. Go confess. I'm like, this is the worst idea ever. I was so afraid. So I went in and I sat down, and sure enough, the first person came in and they sat down, and it was actually 2 people. They came in, 2 girls came in, and they sat down. And they're like looking around, and they're like, so what's this? I'm like, hi, welcome. This is a confession booth. Welcome. This is where confessions are heard. And they were smiling. They think, they're probably lit as high as a kite. And they're like, this is great. And I'm like, so if it's okay with you, I would like to begin. Would you please forgive the Christian church? Would you please forgive us? Would you please forgive us for the Inquisition and the Crusades? Would you forgive us for the ways that the church has participated in wars and destroying people? And please forgive us for the ways that we eradicated Native American peoples. Please forgive us for the role we've played in racism around the world. Please forgive us for the ways that we do not embrace the poor the way Jesus did. Please forgive us. Would you please forgive us for the ways we've ignored the marginalized, we've ignored the widow, the way that Jesus told us to love the widow and the orphan, and we have not done that. And if it's okay, would you please also forgive me? Because I walk on this campus every week, and I claim that I love eternal things. I claim that I love God and beautiful things, and yet I walk around this campus and I'm about myself, and I ignore you, and I'm not about love, and I'm not about grace, and I'm not about giving my life away because of the way that Jesus has made himself alive in me. Would you please forgive me for all of these things? And I remember it wasn't the first two, but it was the next guy who came in. I got to the end of that little thing because I have to kind of do it all in one breath to get it out, or like my brain fuzzes over and I like get really nervous. But I got to the end and I just stared at him. I'm like, and he's just like looking at me like his head kind of cocked. That is the most fucking beautiful thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Kid you not, it's a totally true story. And I was like, thank you. And then inevitably they would go, and I kid you not, they would go, you got it. I forgive you. I forgive you for all of it. And then we would go into like a 20-minute conversation, and inevitably the conversation would involve them talking about abuse and addiction and pain and loneliness and whatever they were going through. We would just sit and we would talk. And because I led with forgive me, I'm just trying to do this best I can. There's this really rich conversation. And through the weekend, that seat was never empty. In fact, usually there were 2 or 3 people stuffed in that little space doing it simultaneously. I must have talked to 50 people through the weekend. Each one was a 20 to 30-minute conversation about faith and life and meaning and why do we exist. And they would confess their pain to me and things that they had done they're ashamed of. Really, really, really graphic things. And we just sat, and it was all the gospel as far as I'm concerned. And that might have been the best day of my life. Follow-up question? So in the book, there's a character named Tony the Beat Poet. And that is me.
Great book. Great book.
Yeah, 3 million copies sold. I believe the children are our future. Treat them well and let them lead the way.
Show them
The side. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Whoa, let the children's laughter remind us how we used to be. Yes, sir. You, Art Garfunkel. Sorry, you're gonna have to wait.
Sorry.
He's very excited.
Excuse me. He's
gonna be 60.
That
He's
was the
very
moment.
excited.
That was the moment of the song. Okay, sorry.
Oh, great idea.
Yay!
Okay. First time. What was your name? Josiah. Do you like Art Garfunkel? Does that hurt? I didn't want to hurt you. I love Art Garfunkel. When a man loves a woman, spend his very last time
Oh wow! What was
trying to hold
What's he singing?
on to what
I know what he's singing. I don't know what he's singing.
So good. Okay, this is I'm sorry, buddy.
Sorry.
Okay, so I'm in the process of a little project I'm doing for me that came to me at 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up, I couldn't go back to sleep, and I got out of bed and I started it. I'm writing 50 micro stories. I'm writing 50 micro stories to try and explain what I believe. When I say micro stories, I mean a story of basically 50 words or less. And they're called the Samaritan Tales. So every one stars a Samaritan. And I'm just gonna pull one up here. Okay. Let's start with this. This is the first one I wrote. It's called The Traveler. A traveling Samaritan came upon a tunnel in a mountain. A figure stood at the tunnel's entrance. "May I pass through the tunnel?" asked the Samaritan. "Do you know the name of the person who made the tunnel?" asked the figure. "No, I do not. Is that a problem?" answered the Samaritan. "Let me ask you this. Do you want what lies on the tunnel's other side?" asked the figure. "I believe I do," answered the Samaritan. "You may pass." And scene. Is that doing it for you? Okay, let me try another one. All right, let me see. All right, here's one I wrote just a couple days ago. This one is called Near and Far. Again, micro stories. Near and Far. Josiah, right? Josiah, you ready for this? Okay. Near and Far. A Samaritan had great compassion. He was greatly concerned by famines in Africa. He was sorrowed by wars in the Middle East. He ached for hunger in Asia. His hurt was so great that he never noticed the pained soul that lived in the house right next door. So my idea is I want to write 50 of these, and I want to give them to my children, my 3 boys, and have them do an illustration for each story, and then do like a coffee table book and give it to our friends for Christmas. Like a little story and a little illustration for my kids, and they're supposed to be thought-provoking. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So Josiah, I've written 5 books. I just finished a novel. I'm sorry, I'm going to get to you. I apologize. I just finished a novel that will hopefully be published in the next year. I have a free book that's a series of essays on faith and public life, discussing topics like immigration, alcohol, gay marriage, what do I think about those topics and whatever. They're all articles that I wrote for Christianity Today years ago. It's a free download on my website. If you go to TonyKriz.com, you can have it for free. It's like 40 chapters, just sort of some thoughts on key issues of public life that we're not talking about well right now. So, okay.
Okay, so the theme this week is love God and love others, right?
Live the question.
Okay. And I noticed something that's reoccurring when you were talking yesterday and the chapel this morning was pain and suffering and hurt. And my question is, like, when we are in a season of pain, how do we love other human beings? And more importantly, my question is, how do we let other human beings in and love us when we're going through hurt?
So good. I just called to say I love you. Well, I think first of all, love is not a commodity. Love is something that happens when two souls overlap. So it's not something you give or take. It's a meeting place in between. So to receive love is to give love. To give love is to receive love, in my personal theology, because I believe I'm a non-individualist in the sense that I believe that we are essentially communal beings. We're not essentially individuals. We are individuals, but we are primarily communal beings. So when you're hurting, your tank feels empty. And sometimes it's hard to find the energy give yourself away for another person. But that's probably exactly when you need to let them maybe take the lead, be present, be receptive. I think one thing that we're really crappy at, since evangelicalism is mostly a product of Western culture, I think evangelicals are pretty bad at it. That is just being together mystically instead of conversationally. Just sitting together, not having to talk, not having to explain things, certainly not having to fix one another. Just listening to each other meander through old stories. Like when your friends lose somebody who's close to them, somebody dies, a family member, a good friend, I think one of the best things you can do is not ask them how they're feeling, not give them a verse to make them feel better, but to take as long as they want to and ask them questions about the person who died. And not, the question should be what do you remember from when you were young? Tell me about the last 3 times you got to hang out with whoever, and just let them talk and meander. Because we're not very good at that sort of non-structured presence. And here's another one. I think a really good phone call is when neither person is talking, and you're just listening to each other breathe through the phone. I think that's a powerful way to be with people and exchange presence. Is that helpful at all? No. You can say no. It's okay. Okay. It's you're kind of doing a bobblehead on me, which is great. That's sort of what was your name? Allison? Alice? Alex? Alex. A-L-E-X? Alex? Nice to meet you, Alex. I'm Tony. It's a pleasure.
So I have a question I love to ask people when I first meet them. And it's kind of just silly. But what is your favorite sound?
My favorite sound? I love the sound of a volleyball bouncing off of sand. I love the sound, especially when it's at a high velocity caused by my hand. I love that sound. Wow. My favorite sound. That's so good. I'm completely stealing that.
Wilson,
Oh, wow. Hello.
may I know your favorite sounds?
My favorite sound. Boy. So I had a pretty spiritual answer, I think. But one of my favorite sounds is kind of that sound that kind of aligns with when I connected with, I don't know, with the Lord, and there's kind of like this great sound of kind of like, wow. And it almost could be a number of different sounds, but a lot of times it does erupt in some kind of song and I want to like dance or something. So that's kind of general. Okay, one
Hello,
snap.
darkness, my
Thank
old
you for
friend.
sharing.
What?
I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision's of... Yes, sir. If I could have anything in the world right now, tangible and intangible, what would it be? World peace and love for all peoples.
So this is a question.
No, hold on. We're still on this one. Sorry. I'm not going to quite. I'm not going to cheapen it with that. Wilson, anything in the world right now? If you could have something, what would it be? Irish coffee.
Anything that could have right in the world right now, what would it be? Man, actually the fear is if I answer that exactly what I'm thinking, I would probably, it almost hurt to say it. So I guess that's the place I'm supposed to go. Is that too intense?
Brother, there is a moral code here at Multnomah, but within
this
those
hurts.
parameters.
This kind of hurts. I'll put it this way. I didn't ever have kids, and I would like to have a son. Just put that out there. But God's good. So there we go.
That's good. When you asked the question, the first thing that jumped into my mind is I've lost my way. I've lost my way. I'm 46 years old, turn 47 next month. And I'm kind of done. Kind of baked. I feel like I've lived a full life, and I've lost motivation, and I'd love to get that back. So that was the thought that actually jumped into my mind. I feel like I'm just stumbling right now through life. Yes, sir. Back row.
If you could add a theme song.
Michael, as I recall.
Yes.
Ha-ha!
Woo! Anyway, for both of you, if you could have a theme song for your life, what would it be?
Oh, that's so cool. A theme song.
Theme song for my life.
Gosh.
And you have to sing it.
I'm going to stop playing so I can actually think. A theme song for my life.
I got mine.
You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
I went through a couple. I was going to say Seasons of Love from Rent.
Oh, that's nice. That's really good.
And then I thought Hurt by Johnny Cash. But I'll land on, there's an old Rich Mullins song that goes, sometimes my life just don't make sense at all. When the mountains look so big and my faith just feels so small. So hold me, Jesus, 'cause I'm shaken like a leaf. You have been King of my glory. Won't you be my Prince of Peace?
It's beautiful. Mine was a lot more shallow than that. It's like,
I like big butts and bitches.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
That's pretty good. That's even more shallow than where I was going to go, so that's good.
There's no way we're being invited back, bud. So we're going to milk this thing for all it's worth.
Oh, wow. No, I don't. Gosh, I don't know. My mind can go all over the place. There is a song that's really been kind of in my heart that I really love. That kind of almost, I don't know if this is quite the segue for it, but it's an old Elton John tune.
There you go.
And now I know, Spanish Harlem are not just pretty words to say. I thought I knew, but now I know that rose trees never grow in New York City. Until you see this trash can dream come true. You stand on the edge while people run you through. And I thank the Lord, there are people out there like you. I thank the Lord, there are people out there like you. While Mona Lisas and Mad Hatters, sons of bankers, sons of lawyers, turn around to say good morning to the night. 'Cause unless they see the sky, and they can't, and that is why, they know not if it's dark outside or light. They know not if it's it's dark outside or light. Yeah, it feels like a secular worship song. I don't want to say secular, but anyway.
Hey, Tony, maybe we could not end, but we don't have to end. But the question is, how can Multnomah, this is something I lay awake and I think, how can Multnomah, in its current state going forward, really take Jesus into the world? How do we make an impact? Being familiar with Multnomah, you know us well. How do we do that?
They're off to do it right now. Okay. Okay. So, if the world is a village, everybody in the village has a job to do. Children's job is to remind us of hope and to entertain us. Our elders, their job is to tell us stories and remind us of wisdom and give us perspective. Mommies and daddies, their job is to have tired backs and to do the hard work so the rest of us can live. And young people, folks like you, throughout all of human history, across the globe and every culture, you've had basically one job to do. Change the world. It's your job. You're the poets and songwriters. You're the ones who stand on boxes and yell at the halls of power and tell them you demand a better world. You're the ones who are revolutionaries. You're the ones who are prophets. You are the one who scream, I want my grandchildren to have a better place than the place where I was raised. I want a better world. I want a world where people aren't hungry and where people aren't hated, where people are not destroyed, and little boys and girls are not sold into slavery. I want a better world. And that's your job. And I'm afraid that Multnomah is going to teach you how to study your Bible, and it's not going to teach you how to change the world. And a lot of that's on your shoulders for each other. Because you're the ones who are having conversations at 2 o'clock in the morning. You're the ones having conversations in the coffee shop, and you're the ones who know the magic inside of one another and whether or not the person next to you is a songwriter or a protester or both. And it's your job to look at them and say, change the world. And when spring break comes, your job is to go experience something you've never experienced before that might just expand your heart, expand your soul, expand your mind. Go live for a week in a homeless shelter. Go care for orphans. Go live among a population that's different than you, looks nothing like you. Learn languages. Cross the world. Most of you are people of privilege because you're in college. And I would argue, then embrace your privilege and see, do, taste, smell this world. And while you're at it, stand in front of a tank. Yell at the halls of power. That's what I got for you. I think Rich wants you to be done.
No.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul. I worship his holy name. One time, bless the Lord. Bless the Lord, oh my soul. Oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never worship your holy name. Sing like never before. Sing like never before. Oh, my soul, I worship your holy name. I will worship your holy name. Hallelujah, Jesus.
He's like the busiest guy I know, so.
Hey, Wilson,
Yeah,
Tony,
brother.
thanks you guys for being with us.
My honor, my honor. You guys
Always,
are too cool.
always welcome at Multnomah. And we need to do this again, so we'll figure out a way to pull this off. But one more time, let's thank these guys for being here at the Well.
Cool.
Feel free to hang out and talk and whatever, but you're free to go. And if you would, take your chair as you leave.